car stopped, where no car of that value usually stopped. It was a black sedan, silent, with the shine of things that had never known dust, and it stood out from the narrow street like a forgotten jewel in the pocket of an old coat. Rafael didn't turn off the engine immediately. He stayed there, his hand still on the steering wheel, his fingers opening and closing slowly, as if his body needed to decide for him what his mind was postponing. On the other side of the glass, the bakery lit up in the afternoon. The light coming from inside was that color only bread knows how to make, a warm golden glow that trickled down the shelves and spilled onto the cracked sidewalk. Above the door, an old dark wooden sign with letters that time had licked at the edges. Fresh bread, every day. And it was true. Every day, for years, that place fulfilled the simple promise it displayed. Rafael thought, without meaning to, that promises like that, small ones, made of flour and patience, were the only ones the world seemed to keep. He had returned to the city for a reason that had nothing to do with bread. He was there for business, to sign papers, to transform that entire block into something taller, cooler, more profitable. He had a briefcase on the passenger seat with blueprints, projections, and the name of a real estate development company that was, deep down, his own name. 20 years of work were in that briefcase, 20 years of airplanes, of meetings that started before sunrise and ended when the day was already in a different time zone, of contracts that bought streets like one buys cigarettes. Rafael had become exactly the man he once swore he would be, and he could no longer tell, looking in the rearview mirror, if that man was someone he would have wanted to meet. That's when she appeared at the bakery window. It wasn't an apparition. It was just the common movement of someone working, leaning over the counter, extending an arm. But Rafael's body recognized it before reason could protect him. He recognized the curve of her shoulder, the way she held her hair back with a pencil when her hands were busy, the way she smiled halfway down her mouth, as if the smile asked permission before fully manifesting. Helena. Older, lighter, with strands of silver that hadn't existed before, running through her dark braid, and yet so much herself that Rafael felt his chest close like a door slammed shut by the wind. She was serving a little girl, perhaps 6 or 7 years old, with a crooked ponytail and a faded flowered dress, who stood on tiptoe to reach the counter. Helena wrapped something in white paper, folding the ends with a care that cannot be taught, and handed it to the child with both hands, as if what she was giving was more precious than bread. The girl said something. Helena laughed, and her laughter, even through 2 panes of glass and the entire street, reached Rafael like the scent of a house where one was once happy. He didn't get out of the car. He stayed there, huddled in the expensive leather, watching the woman who had once been the most certain thing in his life, and whom he had traded for all this that now meant nothing. Back then, they had nothing. That was the truth Rafael had spent 20 years masking for himself. They said they had been poor, and the word always seemed to explain too much. They weren't destitute. They were poor in the old honest way, the kind of poor who count pennies for tomorrow's bread but never let today's go unsatisfied. Helena lived with her mother in a 1-bedroom apartment near the trail, and he shared a roof with 3 younger siblings and a father who came home from his factory shift with his body bent over. It was there, in that neighborhood of houses huddled together like people in the cold, that the two met. He was 19 and had a notebook full of numbers. She was 18 and had a way of looking at simple things as if they were grand. They got engaged one July night without a ring, because rings were a luxury. Rafael took a piece of string from his pocket, the kind used to tie packages, and wrapped it around her finger, laughing and saying that one day he would exchange it for gold. Helena looked at the string as if it were gold. That was the difference between the two, and Rafael only understood it 20 years later. She didn't need the string to turn into gold. She already had the gold in her hands. He was the one who spent his life thinking that the gold was always somewhere else, always tomorrow, always after the next conquest. The scholarship came at the end of that same year. A university far away, on the other side of the country, and then an invitation for an internship abroad, and then one door that opened another door that opened another, in a corridor that seemed endless, and which, he thought for a long time, was the corridor of freedom. He promised he would return. He promised he would send for Helena as soon as he got settled. He promised with his mouth close to her ear, on the station platform, the string still on her finger, the train already whistling. And Helena believed him, because believing was what her love knew how to do. He sent letters, then he sent fewer letters. Then he sent money, which was worse than sending nothing, because the money said without saying anything that he had traded his presence for the sum, that now things could be resolved this way. Helena returned the first envelope. She didn't return the second, because her mother fell ill, and pride, faced with illness, had to learn to bend. But you never spent that money on yourself. You saved it. And when your mother died, 2 winters after Rafael left, he didn't come. He was in a city with a difficult name, closing a deal that would change his life, and he sent flowers. Expensive white flowers, which arrived somewhat wilted because of the journey, and which Helena placed on the coffin without crying because her tears by then had already chosen a deeper place to dwell. That was the last thing he heard from her. After that, silence. And silence, when it lasts long enough, begins to feel like peace. Rafael convinced himself that she had moved on, that perhaps she had gotten married, that perhaps she was happy in a modest way that didn't need him. He convinced himself of so many things that, over time, he forgot they were inventions to help him sleep better. And now there he was, an adult, wealthy, weary with a weariness that no amount of sleep could cure, watching her serve bread to a stranger. The car door weighed more heavily than ever before. Rafael got out. The street air greeted him with a scent he hadn't smelled in 20 years, yet his body knew it by heart. Yeast, cinnamon, burnt wood, the round aroma of freshly baked bread. It was like stepping into a memory. His legs almost betrayed him. He crossed the street slowly, each step harder than the last, because each step brought him closer to the man he had been before becoming who he was. The bell above the door rang as he entered, a small sound like worn brass. Helena looked up. She didn't scream. She didn't drop anything. She didn't do any of the things romances imagine for moments like this. She just stood very still, her hand resting on a loaf of bread she was about to put away, and looked at him for a time that seemed to Rafael to contain all the years that separated them. Her eyes scanned his face like someone reading an old letter, recognizing the handwriting but finding the content strange. And then she lowered her eyes, put away the bread, and said in a voice that didn't tremble, "Yes, of course." 2 words, the same ones she would say to any client. And it was precisely this courtesy, this gentle refusal to turn it into an event, that opened a wound in Rafael's chest that he didn't even know he carried. "Helena," he said. "I know who you are," she replied, without raising her voice or her eyes. "What kind of bread would you like?" He didn't know what to say. He had rehearsed on the plane, in the car, 1,000 speeches, 1,000 weighty phrases, and they all crumbled there, useless before the woman who only wanted to know what kind of bread he wanted. Behind her, the shelves were almost empty, as shelves are at the end of the afternoon in an honest place. There was a smell of freshly brewed coffee. There was an open notebook on the counter with names and numbers written in pencil, and Rafael, even without wanting to look, saw that next to some names there was a dash, and next to the dash the word "later," written with the patience of someone who already knows that later may never come and yet still spins the bread. "The girl," he said, searching for anything to say. "Your daughter?" Helena stopped. And for the first time something crossed her face, a brief shadow, not of pain but of care, the care of someone protecting what they love. "Leah," she said. "Rosanna's daughter, my neighbor. Rosanna died 2 years ago. She had no one." She paused, folding a cloth on the counter with unnecessary care. "Now she does." Rafael was devastated, not by the information itself, but by what it revealed without revealing it. Helena, who had had nothing, whom he had left with even less, who had buried her mother alone and her youth behind her, Helena had, in the midst of all this, found space to carry someone else's daughter. She had given shelter to an orphan, while he bought entire floors of buildings where no one he loved lived. "I didn't know," he said, and the sentence came out so small that he himself was ashamed of it. "No," Helena agreed, and there was no accusation in her voice, which was worse than any accusation. "You didn't know much." From the back of the bakery came a call, an elderly woman's voice, both gruff and sweet. "Helena, my daughter, the evening bread is ready." "I'm coming, Donna Zelia," Helena replied. And Rafael understood through these minimal exchanges that an entire life had unfolded there without him. That while he was building an empire of things that didn't breathe, Helena had built this, a warm place, an old woman who called her daughter, a child who called her something else he didn't hear but imagined, a notebook of names written on credit, a street that knew her name. He had bought the world, she had planted one. He should have said what he was there for. He should have explained that the developer who was going to demolish that block belonged to him, that the papers were almost signed, that in a few months, where there had been fresh bread every day, there would be concrete and glass and nothing. He should have, but he couldn't. He bought a loaf of bread he didn't want, paid with a bill that was too large for the change, and left when she went to get the coins, leaving the money on the counter. It was cowardly, he knew it. 20 years later, he was exactly the same man who put money in place of everything he didn't know how to give. That night, in the glass hotel high above the city, Rafael couldn't sleep. From the window he saw the dark patch of the old neighborhood below, an island of shadow amidst the lights, and he knew that somewhere in that shadow there was a faded bakery, an old woman, a girl, and a woman who had said her name as if she were a stranger. He opened the folder. He looked at the blueprints of the development. Where the architects had drawn a tower, he could now only see the wooden counter, the credit ledger, Helena's hand folding the paper around the bread as if embracing it. He returned the next day, and the day after. He told himself it was to resolve the matter, to be honest, to tell the truth. But the truth is, he returned because every minute away from that golden light had become unbearable. He bought bread to give to the hotel doorman. He sat on a bench in the square across the street and stayed there for hours, in his suit, absurdly so, watching life come and go through the brass bell door. He saw Helena serve a lady who had no money and send her away with 2 loaves of bread and a "Take it, Donacita, and don't come to me with that story about paying." He saw Leah sitting on a stool doing her homework while Helena dictated multiplication tables from behind the counter. He saw Donna Zelia bent over, teaching the girl how to braid the dough. He saw, little by little, the thing he had lost, and he saw it with such clarity that it hurt to look. On the 4th day, it rained. A sudden, late-afternoon downpour, the kind that empties the streets. Rafael took refuge under the bakery awning without thinking, and when he realized it, he was inside, dripping, his suit clinging to his body. Helena looked at him, at the puddle forming at his feet, and for a moment something of the past passed before her eyes. Not love, it was too early for love, but a memory of tenderness, the echo of a time when she would have run to fetch a cloth. "Sit down," she said, pointing to a stool near the oven. "You'll catch pneumonia in those fancy clothes." He sat down. The warmth of the oven was like a hug. Donna Zelia brought coffee in a chipped cup and looked him up and down with the frankness of old people. "So it's you," the old woman said bluntly. "The one who left." "Mrs. Zelia," Helena warned softly. "What's gone?" the old woman repeated, ignoring her, sitting down in a chair with a groan. "She waited for you, you know. 2 winters she waited for you. She went to the station every Sunday thinking you were coming on the 5 o'clock train. She bought extra bread in case you arrived hungry." The old woman drank her own coffee. Then she stopped going. It was good that she stopped. One can't live on the platform all their life. Rafael couldn't look at Helena. He fixed his eyes on the chipped cup, and the chip seemed to him, at that moment, the most honest thing he had touched in years. "Why didn't you spend it?" he asked suddenly, and the question surprised even himself. The money I sent. Donna Zelia said you waited. But you had the money. You could have... He stopped, unsure where the sentence was going. Helena continued what she was doing, storing the evening's bread in cloth bags. "That money wasn't yours," she said finally. "It was the price of not having you. I wasn't going to eat the price of your absence. It would stick in my throat." She tied a bag with a tight knot. "I used some to bury my mother because her dignity was worth more than my pride. The rest..." She stopped talking. She went to a cupboard in the back, rummaged behind some cans, and brought out an envelope. Old, yellowed, worn at the folds from being stored and kept safe so many times. She placed it on the counter in front of him, gently, almost delicately. "The rest is right there," he said. "I could have bought so much with it. But every time I picked it up, I saw the station platform, so I put it away. I thought you'd come get it someday." She shrugged, a small gesture that contained an ocean. "You did." Rafael looked at the envelope and didn't have the courage to touch it. Inside was money he had sent as if paying a debt he didn't want to repay with his heart. And she had kept it for 20 years, not out of greed, but out of a kind of loyalty he didn't know existed. She had been poor all those years with an envelope of money hidden behind cans, choosing dignified hunger over comfort stained with abandonment. And he, who had had everything, had never been rich in anything. "Keep him," Rafael said, his voice choked with emotion. "Please, keep him." "No," Helena replied, with a new firmness, one that hadn't existed in the 18-year-old girl. "I didn't build anything with what you gave me, Rafael. I built it with what I had. If I take it now, it's as if I'm saying I needed you to get here, and I didn't." She pushed the envelope closer to him. "It was difficult. It was very difficult, but I got here alone. And look how beautiful this place is." He looked. He really looked, for the first time, not like someone appraising a property, but like someone seeing a house. The shelves were worn but clean, the photographs on the wall, of people from the neighborhood, of June festivals, of children who were now adults. The credit ledger, which he understood now was the ledger of a wealth that no real estate developer knew how to quantify. Little Leah sleeping in a corner, leaning against a sack of flour, her homework notebook fallen on the floor. Donna Zelia dozing in a chair, and Helena, in the middle of it all, illuminated by the light of the oven, mistress of a kingdom that he had planned to turn to dust. It was at that moment that the last wall within him crumbled, not with a bang. It crumbled as true things crumble, silently from within. "Helena," he said, "I need to tell you something, and after I tell you, you'll have every right to kick me out of this mess." And he told her. He told her about the real estate developer and about the paperwork, about the tower that was going to go up where they were sitting. He told her without holding back, without searching for softening words, because he felt she deserved the whole naked truth, even if that truth was him. As he spoke, he saw Helena's face change, saw understanding arrive like a tide, saw her hand reach for the edge of the counter as if searching for solid ground. When he finished, the only sounds in the bakery were the rain and the crackling of the oven. Helena remained silent for a long time. Then she said softly, "So you came back to destroy even that?" It wasn't a question. It was grief. "I came back," he replied, "without knowing it was here, without knowing it was you. I bought the block from a map, Helena. On a map, everything is just a number." He ran a hand over his wet face, and it was impossible to tell if it was rain or not. "But I'm not going to do it. Do you understand? There's no tower. There's nothing. Tomorrow morning I'll tear up the contract. This place isn't going to fall." "You do this out of guilt," Helena said, "and guilt doesn't build anything." "I do it out of shame," he corrected him, "which is different. Guilt wants to get rid of the weight. Shame learns from it." He looked at the envelope, still on the counter between them like a border. "I spent 20 years thinking I had won, Helena. And I came to discover, on a rainy day in a bakery, that the only thing I had gained in life I lost at the station, at 19, when I got on a train and left you on the platform thinking you would come back." She didn't answer, but she didn't send him away either. The rain subsided, as all rains do. Rafael helped close the bakery, and the strangeness of seeing him carrying sacks of flour in his expensive suit even made Donna Zelia laugh. Leah woke up, rubbed her eyes, looked at the wet man with the non-judgmental curiosity of children, and asked if he was the new baker. Helena said no, that he was just passing through. And the just passing through hurt Rafael more than anything, because that was exactly what he had been his whole life. A man passing through, incapable of staying, always on his way to another place that promised to be better and never was. That night, at the hotel, he tore up the contract. Not figuratively. He tore it up for real, with his hands, page by page, and the sound of the paper tearing was the clearest music he'd heard in a long time. He called his partners in the middle of the night and canceled the deal, not caring about the losses and not caring about the incredulous silence on the other end of the line, because for the first time in 20 years, he was doing something that couldn't be contained in a spreadsheet, and that, precisely for that reason, was worthwhile. But he knew that wasn't enough. He knew that tearing up the contract would save the bakery, not correct them. It would save the bread, not the past. A man doesn't undo 20 years of absence with a grand gesture. He undoes it, if he undoes it at all, with a patience he'd never possessed. And Rafael, who had always known how to buy, would have to learn the hardest thing there is, to go without buying anything. So he stayed. He rented a room at the corner boarding house, a small room with a single bed and a window overlooking the neighbor's wall. He parked his car in a garage and started walking. Little by little, without fanfare, he began to show up at the bakery early in the morning, when the bread came out of the oven, and to do what no one asked, sweep the sidewalk, carry the bags, learn to light the wood-fired oven without burning himself. And he burned himself many times, and Helena would rub ointment on his hands with a roughness that couldn't hide her concern. Donna Zelia put him to work as if he had always worked there and called him boy, despite his gray hair. And once, putting her hand on his face, said, "You look like someone who's learning to live at the wrong age, but better wrong than never." Leah was the first to give in. Children forgive more quickly because they haven't yet learned to ration love. Within a week, she was already asking Rafael to take her to school, showing him her falling teeth and calling him over to check if he was doing the math right. And seeing him with the girl, kneeling on the bakery floor explaining division with bread rolls, was what began to melt something inside Helena that she had kept frozen for years out of necessity. It wasn't quick. It couldn't have been quick, to be honest. There were days when she barely spoke to him. There was one night when she cried with anger, finally, all the anger of 20 years coming to the surface, and she said harsh, deserved things, and he listened to it all without defending himself, because he understood that listening was the only decent way to be present. "Do you have any idea what it's like to wait for someone who doesn't come?" she shouted. "What it's like to buy extra bread Sunday after Sunday in case you arrived? Do you have any idea what it's like to wake up one day and realize that the person you loved most in the world traded you for a number on a contract?" And Rafael, who could have said 1,000 things, only said, "I do now. Now I do." And it was true, because in those weeks he'd started to wait too. He waited for her forgiveness the way she once waited for the train, with no guarantee that it would come. The neighborhood, which at first looked at the millionaire with suspicion, gradually got used to him. The man who was going to tear down the block became the man who fixed the school roof, who paid for Donna Zelia's eye surgery without telling anyone, who taught the street kids to play soccer with unexpected skill, because, he once confessed, laughing before he was rich, he had just been a neighborhood kid like them. He no longer threw money away. Helena noticed that. He didn't settle things with checks. He showed up, with his hands, with time, with his presence, which was the currency he had never known how to spend. One afternoon, months later, when winter was drawing to a close, and the mornings were regaining their old golden hue, Helena found him standing before the photograph of her mother, which she had placed on the bakery wall among the others. He looked at the photo as if apologizing to someone who can no longer hear them. "She liked you," Helena said, appearing behind him with a dish towel over her shoulder. "Even after everything. She said you were a good boy who had the misfortune of dreaming too big for the life you had." She paused. "I thought it was silly at the time. Today I think she was right. I wish I could have gone back to her funeral," Rafael said, without taking his eyes off the photo. "I think about it every day." "Did you know that? That I've been thinking about it every day for 18 years? "No," Helena said softly. "I didn't know." "There's so much we don't know about each other," he said. "We think letting go is just walking away, but we carry each other. We carry each other our whole lives, even from afar. I carried you to every meeting, every hotel, every city with a difficult name. I just didn't have the courage to leave everything behind and come get what I was carrying." He finally turned to her. "I'm a coward, Helena. I always have been. The only courage I've ever had in my life was to stay these past few months, and that's a small courage." Helena looked at him for a long time, and then she did the thing she had been putting off for months, the most difficult and simplest thing in the world. She reached out and touched his face, the way Donna Zelia had touched hers, but different because her hands held a history that the old woman's hands did not. "It wasn't small," she said. And there, in the middle of the bakery, with the smell of daily bread enveloping them, with the photograph of their mother looking on, with Leah laughing at something outside and Donna Zelia pretending not to see from the kitchen doorway, the two stood still, closer than they had been in 20 years. They didn't kiss. It was too soon, or too much, or simply not what that moment called for. They just stayed there, her hand on his face, breathing the same warm air, two survivors of an ancient shipwreck recognizing each other on the shore. The yellowed envelope, the one with 20 years' worth of money, Helena ended up using, but not for herself. With it, she bought a new, larger oven and had a phrase she herself chose, painted on the bakery's outside wall next to the old sign, in Leah's crooked handwriting, who insisted on helping. "Here, no one goes hungry." And it was true. Every day, the leftover bread went to those in need, and the credit ledger continued with its entries and its later payments that no one demanded. Rafael, who had dreamed his whole life of building towers, discovered that the tallest thing one can build is a place where no one goes hungry, and that he had needed to lose everything he thought was important to see what he had always been. They didn't get married right away. Maybe they didn't even need a wedding after everything. What happened between them was slower and deeper than any ceremony. It was the habit of waking up early together to bake bread in the morning. It was the way he learned to tie her hair up when her hands were busy with the dough. It was little Leah starting to call him Dad one day without warning. And the way Rafael had to sit on the bakery floor because his legs wouldn't support him in the face of that word he never imagined he deserved. One spring morning, Rafael took a piece of string from his pocket, the kind used to tie packages. He wrapped it around her finger, as he had done when he was 19, and didn't say that one day he would exchange it for gold, because now he knew. He knew that the gold had always been there, in the string, in her hands, in the light of the oven, in the daily bread. Helena looked at the string on her finger and laughed with half her mouth first, as always, asking permission before the smile fully blossomed. "It took a while," she said. "It took a while," he agreed. And outside, beneath the old sign that promised fresh bread every day and that now, at last, also promised everything Rafael had spent a lifetime trying to understand, the morning sun beat down on the cracked sidewalk, and the narrow street, which had almost become a glass tower, remained what it had always been, a small and immense place where people knew each other by name, where the bread came out hot, and where a man who once had everything had finally become rich.